It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh. I'm the guy they call Smoker Broker. Happy Thursday. Hope everything's going well. Moving into the spring, which is the high selling season for the residential, at least the residential industry. And it's interesting because I don't think we really have got out of the high selling season. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a time that we have sold more houses in the history of, the state of Texas for sure, and really the rest of the country. So it's strange. You know, we usually come through where January and February are the slowest months of the year. March is and we start gearing up into April and into May. And like this time right now is usually when we're really gearing up. Well, we haven't had to gear up because we've been geared up and we've been doing it. We've been doing it since really October and through the entire holidays, and it hasn't stopped. But what has stopped are the amount of houses that are available, and it's kind of becoming just a little bit of a concern. You know, it's a different type of market. I probably get asked at a minimum of 10 times a week, hey, look, where's it going? And for the first time probably in my career, I'm like, I'm not so sure, you know, but it's not a negative outlook. That's one thing I do tell people. Everybody asks me, well, hey, are you all concerned? I'm like, well, yeah, but not the reason why you think. I've started to refer to this as what I think is coming as the big pause. I think that's what's coming is the big pause, because what's going to happen is we are officially going to have no houses at all, which we're damn close to it right now. And it depends what you define as no houses. I mean, I define no houses when I go to any area and there's 4 or 5 houses that are on the market and they're all just landed on that day. That's no houses for me, because I already know that those houses are going to be gone. And if they're not already, they're probably already going to be gone by the end of the day. Yesterday, I looked in one of the prominent suburbs of Dallas-Fort Worth, and historically, there would have been 100 to 150 homes. There were 5, and they all had the N symbol next to them, which means they were new, and they had all come on that morning. And the person who I was looking for, you know, this is the first in my career. I never did that. I've never done that before. Yesterday was the first. So for my crew and all the crew, everybody that watches, yesterday was the first. This is the first time I told someone, I don't think we're going to be able to help you right now. I don't think that I can find what you're looking for in the next 3 or 4 months.
Go ahead and refer them to me.
And then they asked me,
them.
well, what?
I'll take them. You can refer them to me then. I don't give up.
Good luck, because you'll literally, if I gave them away, it's a problem. The other concern, and this is a good, I'm going to do a takeaway before we even get into the show's topic today. A takeaway here is that this person asked me point blank, should I sell my house in, I won't say the state because I want to keep neutral the person I'm talking about, but should I sell my house? And I go, well, only if you're completely set that you will move into an apartment if you have to. She's like, well, what do you mean? I go, exactly what I said. I go, if you're selling your house thinking you're going to be able to get one here, I go, I cannot tell you that right now. I go, I can, in fact, if I had to bet, I'd say the odds are 85% that you're going to be in an apartment before you're in a home in the next few months. And that's scary. You know, that's not something we're used to. Now, you could say that that's a problem. And if you back it up, you start getting into the where the market you think is depressed because the agents aren't selling homes. Well, that's not necessarily true. We are still selling listings, but they're a limited amount. The good news is the listings are gone. If you want your house listed, just let us know. It's gone. If you want your house sold for the most that's probably ever been worth, that's something all of us can do probably in a matter of a day and all day. I was just thinking, who really has to be hating this right now are the guys like the Open Doors and the Zillows and the Redfins that buy your house. That their whole appeal has always been, we'll buy your house, no hassle. Well, guess what? Nobody has to have a house right now. And you spent $1 billion to do that. And we don't even need it right now. And the better part is we might not even need it for another year or two. It's funny. If you're an investor in those companies, by the way, this is all opinion. You probably can think a little bit of it as fact if you look close enough, but I'm going to say it's opinion for legal purposes. But it's amazing to me that so many people invest in those things. And if they knew what those companies do, their allure is that we can make it convenient and you don't have to go through all the showing trouble. Well, right now, every brokerage on the face of this earth can basically say, well, it's only going to probably be 6 hours or so when it's gone.
Yep.
So why would you pay someone, or why would you be willing to lose 20% of equity in your home right now when you literally can pay 20 to 30% more and going through a traditional real estate company? That's interesting. You know what else I also find interesting? I find it enjoyable and comical that on the cover of Forbes this past week, you have the CEOs of Zillow and EXP. Guess what those two individuals had the newness of that they haven't had before? They are now in the billionaire status. Now, what's funny about that, and when I say funny, I don't find it funny, and I especially wouldn't find it funny if I'm, inside those organizations. The top individuals, they make the money. Yeah, they're the ones with all the money. But the guys down at the bottom that are promised everything, I wonder how they feel that the new, or not the new, the CEO of EXP now is a billionaire all of a sudden. I wonder how they feel. I wonder if they attribute that to it's so successful, or are they attributing to that all this stock and stuff has been set to where someone's benefiting on the back end of it and it's not them. Better yet, it's someone who's benefiting from the fact that the money is there right now because the stock is better than it usually is. But what happens when it's not there and you have all this stock that's worth nothing? That is interesting. Zillow too, for that matter. And Zillow is preaching to the world how they're on the stake of taking it over, and they have billions of people's money, and they are literally gambling that they think they can turn it. And in the meantime, their CEO is now a billionaire. The investors aren't, but they are. So it's funny, and I picked those two because both of them showed up this week. Both of them reached that status, and you start to think, where do we get to where it's supposed to be the greater whole that does well and not just the greater few? Makes you wonder. I wonder, like the corporate folks at Zillow, I wonder how they feel about that. I'm not talking about Mr. Director or whatever. I'm talking about Mr. Senior Manager or whatever that probably makes, $75,000, $80,000, maybe $100,000. I wonder what they think that they work 75, 80 hours a week. Yet the CEO is a billionaire.
Well, are you going to announce that we're taking the SWR group public?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I almost would be hesitant because I'd be like, I don't want to be attributed to that side of it, because in the end, the higher ups, they're the ones that they do well, and they should, especially if they create it. Make no mistake, I'm not saying that anybody's not deserving at that level of what they've done. Okay, I want to be very clear with that. No one's going to bash someone. You don't get to that level without doing something right. So anybody who's out there going, oh, this guy's bashing, I'm not bashing Zillow or EXP. What I'm stating is a question. Is it okay? All right, is it okay that that is the structure right now, but the rest of them, really, that's not the structure, but for the precious few, it is. Do we reward the people that created it? Are they the ones that should benefit from everybody else's contributions? And if you haven't caught on to my vibe, this isn't directed at just them. Everybody knows on this particular show, we focus on real estate and entrepreneurship, but we also focus on, I can't stand corporations. I cannot stand the initial goal of a corporation. And let me tell you, the initial goal is not so the associates are happy. The initial goal is so that the top few do great no matter what happens, no matter what happens to them, no matter what happens to the company. The company could be in utter, in fact, sometimes when the company fails, they make out better. Which that should be a crime. I still don't know how in this country it's not a crime that a company that's being just punished and losing everything, that the guy who's probably responsible, when I say guy, I mean guy or gal, the guy who is responsible is parachuting out with 30, 40, 50 million. You'll never, ever explain to me how that's possible when you have this utter failure. So I talked about this because it's a theme on the show that we talked about with agents. And if you wanted to translate where that is to the bigger whole for us, we push the fact that you should become a real estate agent. We push the fact that you should control your own career. One thing that's great about what we do here is that there's really not one person that benefits over everything. Everybody has the same chance to start their own thing, build their own thing. In fact, the people who are decent, the only thing they do care about is the people that are under them, that they do well, and that they do better. And even on my stuff, my judge of where I'm at or what I'm doing, it has never been financial. In fact, if you want to know my greatest worries when it comes to my particular group, my particular company, is the fact that the people that I have that have trusted me all over the years, that I've developed something that is worthy of them to take for the rest of their lives or do whatever they want with it to better themselves. And if I haven't done that, I failed. I failed miserably. You can make so much money. What does it matter whether someone makes 700,000, a million, 2 million? At what point is there relevance if they didn't leave anything behind? You get asked that question, you're wise. And we were joking about this past week. We had this question come up several times. And one of the ones, there's many things that go into the why, but one of the things I like to talk about, or I usually put out there, is to me, it's legacy. And it's not the type of legacy that you think. Some people refer to legacy as, this person will be enshrined. That's not the legacy I'm talking about. I'm talking about the legacy you leave for the people behind, that you've actually left something that is important enough for them that they can fulfill it and move on with it. That's what I talk about when I talk about my senior people, when I talk about my kids, when I talk about my wife. Those are the things that, when it comes to a why, that I made sure I left something for them that they can move on. The corporations, I'm just not so sure that's the goal anymore. I'm just not so sure that is where they're at with everything. And every time I see something like that, it's funny. The Forbes, the article, it would have set me off with one of those guys. The fact that both of them were on it, I go, how ironic that both of them this past week became billionaires. Both of them on the same platform of what it is that they're trying to do. And they're both billionaires, yet their company, I'd say less than 1% of those guys are doing that well. If you wanted to be a smart aleck, you could say, well, yeah, Gary Keller's the same way. That's not true. He's the only one that has not done that, and that doesn't mean he's going to. He's been in the news that he possibly would do that, but I can assure you, knowing the man personally, if he does it, he ain't doing it for himself. He's doing it because he feels like he has to be more competitive for his agents. Everything he does is designed. That's just number one reason why I'm here, is because everything he does is designed to counter what somebody else does to try to take away from his people. There's a big difference between the two. So anyways, hey, I hope you guys are doing great. We are going to talk about something that's not today's not the, we're talking about closings today. Fantastic. But it is one of the key components that we do. And I noticed we hadn't talked about it in a long time. So, we have a lot of agents that watch that are new agents. So we're going to discuss the procedures for that. A lot of you, when you come in as an agent, you're trained on the basics, but nobody really ever defines exactly what the steps are when it comes to the close. They go, well, you should do this, this, and this, but it's really not defined. So we're going to help you out with that today. As always, I bring my crew on. And Brent does this with me, so I really don't consider him part of the crew. It's actually his show as much as it is mine. So he's a regular out there, and he pretty much runs the show more than I do. But I do like it when Richard joins us because we get a much better perspective. Actually, we probably get a much more accurate perspective as to
Professional.
what's going on. A professional for sure. Rich has been with us for a long time. She is just probably one of the most elegant, intelligent agents out there. She'll never tell you she defines one way or the other what type of house she sells. She damn well can sell the luxury homes, though. But she can sell just about anything she wants to, and she does it when she wants to. So we love that about her. We love that when she's on the show. And another thing about Richard that's great, Richard doesn't ever give opinions as to what she thinks favors somebody else. She just flat out tells you like she wants to. Even if she disagrees with me, she'll say it. Even if she's like, yeah. And you want people like that around you. You don't want the people that say, well, yeah, I agree. I'm like, with what? I'm not sure I was right. So I love that about her. It's always good to have her. And Brent, we'll do the sponsors at the end because I want to get into.
Good, because I didn't have the copy up.
Great. Thanks for being ready. So we'll do that at the end, but just don't let me forget that. All right.
Yep.
So, Brent, walk us through do the overall procedure as to how we get to the end process. Like briefly go through what are the major steps that has got us to this point.
Okay, so obviously we've gone under contract. We've accepted an offer. We've gotten through the repair negotiations. We've gotten through the appraisal. And now you're talking about after that, just kind of like from after the appraisal to close?
Yes. Start talking about what are the steps are we starting to do to get ready for it.
So it depends on what side we're on, right? If we're on the listing side, we're going to
go
make
through
sure.
Both of them.
Okay. So if we're on the listing side, we're going to make sure that the sellers will be completely out by the close date. They have their movers, scheduled. We have them set to have utilities turned off after close. We make sure that, all the repairs have been done and that we provide receipts. We also make sure that the house is going to be cleaned and ready to turn over to the new buyers. And then we're going to just start looking for coordinating with closing or with the title company about closing times, making sure that all the information is needed or has been given that's been needed, and setting up time with the title company for the sellers to show up. Buy side, it's going to be more them arranging with their lender to make sure they have everything they need. They didn't do something ridiculous and open new lines of credit or quit their job last minute. So that's all I have to say about that.
So he makes it sound simplistic, and it can be.
That's it, to my knowledge. That's all I have.
Yeah, he's never had problems. So
I've never had deals.
In the pieces of this, that's what we're going to break out through the shows we just talked about, is how each of these things affect what it is that we do. And we don't do it in any order. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of these are the steps that we're going through. So let's talk about the lending side of it first. So Brent mentioned that very nonchalantly that the lender, that we have to follow up with them. So Rich, when he talks about follow-up, he just kind of throws it out there like it's candy. There's a lot more to it. And what are we looking at? What are our concerns with that lender? What are the concerns from the beginning? What are the concerns right now? What are the things that they could have done that could hurt us? What are the things that they could say that could hurt us right now? What is it that we're concerned about? We are focusing on the buy side, but this affects the listing side too. But walk us through what we're concerned about with the lender as we're getting ready to close.
So if we have gone through all of the other steps on appraisal has been done, negotiations are done, the other big factor is buyer approval. If you are getting a loan from the lender, there is a specific period that we usually put in our document outlining exactly how many days a buyer has to get full approval from the lender that, yes, these guys are clear. We approve them for these funds. We are going to provide them the fund. Generally, when this market wasn't this intense, it was about 20, 21 days, giving them plenty of time. Right now, that number is down to 15 days because sellers are like, nope, fine. If you're not going to buy it, I have 10 other people in line that are going to be able to meet that requirement. So
that's if there's not a cash buyer.
That's if that's not a cash buyer. Correct.
Right.
If it's not a cash buyer.
No.
Now, the follow-up with the lender that the agent is doing, if it's a good lender, they don't need me to follow up constantly, right? If I call them, they tell me whatever they've asked for is already done and taken care of. If But a lot of the times it's more me letting the buyer know that the documents that the lender is asking you for, right? Whether it be your taxes from 6 years ago, 5 years ago, it is crucial that you get them to the lender as soon as possible because time is of the essence. And this is where the lender's underwriting group, they're looking at every nook and cranny of your lending history, your leverage, what your assets are, where you might have money invested, so that way they can fully approve you for the loan. And so that there's no problem leading up to closing that, okay, you know what, we can't approve this buyer. Then you lose the house, the seller's upset, there's all kinds of drama.
Yeah, so, and that's great. So she's laying down the process that, and they do a very good job tag teaming because Brent did the overview. She's going through more of the detail. Now let's go through some of the trouble that happens because she's identified some of the points that become real issues. The first one is that, and this is a good takeaway. Now we teach everybody when it comes to dealing with the vendors on the other side of the closing transaction. That would be your other agent, your lender, and your title company. It's really not the appraiser because the appraiser goes through the lender. So we're dealing with those people. Our crews are taught that you should be every Monday calling each of the parties, not the buyer and the seller as much, but each of the parties and asking them, where are we at? And are you waiting on anything from us? Now, there's twofold reason for this, right? The first one is, so every week we know, do we have a problem right now? Are we waiting on anything? All right, so we do that, and we do it strategically because as we get close to the end, if they start coming up with a bunch of excuses, that's an immediate, easy thing for us to do is go, hey, hang on. I've called you every Monday for the past month. And every damn Monday you say the same thing. All good, no problems, heading on. But now all of a sudden, there's all these issues. And the issues are all streamed from, it's not you. It's somebody else. Because God forbid, they're going to say, hey, I effed this one up. This is my fault. Because that doesn't happen. In fact, I've rarely met a lender that says, oh yeah, my bad. They're almost always going to come up with some type of excuse that is blamed on the buyer. The lender can dream up an excuse about the buyer if they want to put blame on them. Now, some of my lender friends are like, hey, easy, Robert. What? I'm not talking about you. Richard mentioned that the good ones we don't have problems with. We're not talking about you. We're talking about the ones that intentionally do this. They know damn good and well, no matter what happens, that they have an excuse ready that gets them at least out of the liability way. Or at least I think it does.
Well, one of the issues you're talking about with when we were discussing liability is when buyers, we're very excited to get, you're very excited. You bought a house. You really want to get started in life there. You're after the option period. You think you're pretty good. The lender is telling you, yeah, you're fine. All the paperwork is needed is here. And then you get really excited. And then you go start buying couches and furniture and this screen and that screen and all kinds of things that you're going to put in your house on credit, on your credit card. Folks, that will stop your lending process from going.
By the way, it's a good takeaway. For anybody who's watching or listening that especially is new, that's another takeaway that's important.
You have to tell your buyer, do not purchase anything on credit when your house is from the option period to closing. You just cannot purchase anything on credit. No major purchases, right? Don't go buying couches. Don't go buy a car. Don't do these things. If you need to purchase it and you have the availability to purchase it cash, fine. But don't buy anything on credit that will mess up your credit score and that whole process of underwriting that the lender is taking care of.
Here's another takeaway from that same conversation. This has nothing to do with whether you're close on the approval side of it. No. And it has nothing to do with the amount of money you make. The amount of money you make is indifferent to the fact that you're already getting a higher dollar loan, probably because you make a lot more money. So your mistake can be just as bad as someone who's applying for a $200,000 loan. If you're applying for like a $2 million loan and do something similar, you could be in jeopardy as well of that lender going,
debt to income.
Yeah, it's right. And so let me give you another takeaway too. It's a good show, by the way. The more I think about it, I thought it was just a bland conversation when we talked about it. Now that when we start doing the takeaways, there's a lot of takeaways.
You do
in
know what
this.
we're talking about, Brent.
Yeah, and Brent, yeah, he's all right. He does know. I sometimes don't think he does, but when you talk
I do just
about
enough to
someone,
not get fired.
someone who's wealthy, a lot of times the assumption becomes that they're solid because they make a lot of money. And I'll tell you a tip about the wealthy. They're not afraid to tell you that they're wealthy when you're doing a real estate deal with them. They make it clear that you know that they're wealthy. But the problem is if you make that assumption, and this is the old judging a book by its cover, I will tell you historically, most of the wealthy people I've dealt with are probably more in danger of screwing up the loan than the person that makes $100,000 a year. Because the person who makes a ton of money, one thing you find about the wealthy, the more they make, the more they spend. If you saw the debt to income ratios of the average person that makes $1 million a year, you would be surprised to find out that they ain't that much better off.
Yeah, they're cash
the
poor.
dude that's making 75 to 125. In fact, the guy that's making 75 to 125 might actually be in a better position because the more people make, the more people spend. And it's you don't want to say it's the American way, but it is. That's why this country has a ton of debt, government-wise and individual-wise, because we are taught to spend the money. And then you get into the, hey, life is short, which, hey, look, I'm there too. But when you start making assumptions because somebody lives in a bigger house or they tell you they have $1 million, that's not a slam dunk that they're going to be okay financially. All right, so that's a big takeaway that a lot of agents, I've seen agents before where they have not even asked for a pre-approval from someone like that because they're like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about that. I don't want. That's the one person I would worry about. I would make sure that they have the money that they said they're going to have. I'll tell you another little tip too about people with money when it goes through the closing processes on both sides of this. A lot of times when someone purchases a home of that size, like if you purchase a 6,000 or 7,000 square foot home and you paid like $4 million for it, you'd be surprised how many wealthy people that we've gone through when we've shown their houses, especially in the summer, and half the house, the utilities are off. And do you know why that is? Because the utilities alone on a house of that size usually rival the house payments of most decently high income people. Those utilities can easily fall into the $1,500 to $2,000, $3,000 range. A lot of times when people get into those homes and they're overextended, they really start realizing how many issues. And this all ties into this assumption that, well, somebody's wealthy, that they're going to be fine. This is a problem that we have in the closing process, that we get to the finish line and someone who had that kind of money all of a sudden is having issues. And everybody acts shocked, except the person that's done it for a while going, happens all the time. So that's a good takeaway. Don't ever make the assumption because someone has money or says they had money that they're going to be completely qualified to do what they say they're going to do. In fact, sometimes they can be the bigger problem. So I love that. Love the constant follow-up, making sure that we've discussed with the lender where we're at. But the reason why we're doing that is we're documenting that we're trying to clear a path to close, that we know there are no more barriers. Remember, the entire objective during this contract process is the barriers that are the barriers that exist. And Brent mentioned them: your negotiation, your option period, your repairs, your appraisal, your finance, and actually getting to close. All these are barriers. So we're trying to get through and we're trying to clear all these so that we say we're good to go. Now, at the point we're talking about, we have cleared most of these except these last hurdles that we are now talking about. All right, let's talk about the seller for a little bit. On the sell side, as we're starting to get close to the closing date, Brent, what are some of the things that the seller needs to be doing, and what are some of the problems that may be caused by what they're doing as they get up to this date?
Well, I mean, are you referencing to them moving out? Are you referencing them to them breaking things in the house?
All of it.
Cool. So I quit.
So you should have plenty to discuss.
Oh, I have plenty to discuss, but we can go anywhere. So, let's talk about they're supposed to close on the last day of the month. It's a Friday. The sellers have everything going. Maybe they're waiting too long to start planning their move out. Maybe they think, oh, okay, well, on the 30th, that's when I need to start moving out, because we've heard of that before. Yeah, and so the buyer comes in for their final walkthrough and nothing's out.
All right. So that's where I wanted you to go.
You have
to make
to
sure
tell your seller.
Yeah.
Tell your seller. If you're closing on the 30th, I tell all my sellers, you need to be out of the house by the 29th.
All right, so look, that's why they're on the show, because that's where I'm going. I had my hesitations with Brent that he was going to get it right, but he did. That's what we're trying to
Thanks for your
discuss
help,
right now.
Dad.
We've got an issue where it's our job, this is a takeaway for the show, that you make sure that you communicated how the close process works, okay? This is another failure that agents make, even veteran agents, that they make the assumption that the seller is aware of exactly what Richard just said a minute ago, that they have to be out on the close day. There are some people that believe that closing means, okay, we're sold, now we need time to get out. There are some people,
if that's the case.
Yeah, there are some people, Californians, that will close and they'll be like, well, we need another 2 weeks. Because in California, they have roaming escrow periods. So you're like, no. In Texas, it means you have to be like gone. And as soon as that thing funds, it's not your house anymore.
Also,
and if you are still there, you're guilty of what?
Well, if you're buying a house, that last thing you want your buyer to come and see is your last 13 boxes that are like strewn about the house trashy on the day of final walkthrough.
So I'm going to tell you something about that too. That is just as bad. This is a really good takeaway, because this is a huge mistake. This is especially for the veteran agents too, because we try to mix it up on the problems that we've seen even for a 10 or a 15-year vet. It's just as bad to go into a house that they've left a few things as the entire house still being unpacked, because the feeling is just the same. The feeling is, I cannot get my stuff in there until you get that stuff out. I go, so now I have to wait, and we already have the Mayflower people coming in who are expensive, and we can't make them wait. So this is a common mistake. In fact, it's the worst mistake, because you'd almost rather the house be unpacked, because at least in the walkthrough, you would have identified that and said, hey, we got a major problem. Now we walk through and we're like, oh, that'll be gone tomorrow. And then we get there and there's still a whole closet full of stuff and the attic's still full and the seller's in there the day of pulling it out. Let me tell you something. You start trying to clean your attic out on the day of close, or God forbid, even the night before, you are in trouble. Because just like almost 95% of this country, they go up there and like, good Lord, what the hell? I had no idea that was up there. And then some of them are so smart ass that they're just like, screw it, I'll just leave it. Like the buyer coming in as the trash man. And they're supposed to go up there and get that. That happens all the time too. I cannot count the times in my career where a buyer closes, and it's usually 2 or 3 days later because they haven't got to the attic yet. And then they get to the attic and they send me a picture of like the Griswold Santa Claus in the sleigh, which, by the way, that happens a lot too.
Christmas decor is always up there.
If you've done it long enough, I swear, I'm not kidding you. This is a true statement. And I can even do this number off the top of my head because I don't know the exact one, but I know it's damn well more than this. I can tell you for a fact, there have been more than 10 times in my career, somebody has sent me the picture of the Santa in the sleigh that's up in the attic. And it's probably closer to 30 or 40.
Or old baby stuff, like memorabilia that you forgot that you kept.
I love our family, friends of the family. They go through this entire, process of saving pictures. I'll be damned if they never look at one of those pictures. But we have all these albums, All of us have all these albums stacked away. Most of us will go to our grave never looking at those albums again.
Give you an example of another issue that, since we're talking about on the way to closing, that can happen. So this happened with my listing a while back. my clients sold a house and they were in the process of moving out into their new home. They didn't need to sell to purchase their next, but they still had things at the old house at my listing. And so they had moved most of their things, and my client went back one day to her own home. This is, the listing is out of option period, everything. It's about 20 days from closing. She goes there to get things out of her attic and walks in, and contractors have started demoing the kitchen and painting the house and stripping up the floors. Because the seller thought, the buyer of my listing thought, oh, well, we're so close to closing, we want to have the work done prior to closing.
All right, guys. So listen, that's why they come on as well. We don't script this show.
Names, but this agent, the buyer's agent was from an office of a major Dallas real estate agent.
Yeah. We don't script the show. And I'm going to tell you right now what she's talking about can get you in probably some of the most trouble you'll ever get in as a real estate agent, because most of the time, even if you were oblivious to them doing it, there was one way or another that they were given access to that house from you before they were allowed to. And
the houses aren't a lockbox. The only other person that has the key is the owner of the home. That means
that's right.
At some point, the buyer's agent gave them the keys, gave her clients the keys, who gave multiple copies to multiple vendors, to the painter, to the landscape.
Just so you know, too, if
it
you
was
want a real life consequence. I had a peer of mine, not a friend, a peer that did this. Their license was suspended for 2 years. The fine, I want to say, it was $100K, which is huge for a real estate agent. That's a very high dollar fine. And I want to say that they were sued as well by the seller, which the seller won outright. And of course, the buyer was in trouble as well. But the brunt, and this is the point of the conversation, the brunt of the consequences were all on the agent. I mean, from incompetence, from at what point did you tell him this wasn't okay? At what point, why did you give him this key? Which, again, another takeaway of the show. And it's crucial to closing. You don't ever give that key away until the title company has verified that it has funded. You are not done. This is the heart and soul of the show. You are not done with this process just because you sign paperwork and the other party signed paperwork. There have been plenty of closes that have failed at that point after they have signed. It is not done until the title company has money. You can never give that key away until it's funded. Now, I'll tell you something hypocritically, because I'm not I'm non-hypocritical, because I'm not hypocritical. And I do this, but I'm very careful about it. I almost don't even want to say this in the show because too many new agents would pick it up. I would not lie to you if I would tell you that I have let the buyer agent take the key before, because the night before, and they're going to fund. But it's also someone that I know would cut their arm off before they would give the key to the agent, meaning I know who the person is. Is it a tad hypocritical that I do that? Maybe. I'd put my life on it that the person's not going to do it because I wouldn't give it to anybody else. But have I done it before? Yeah. Did I do it this morning? Yeah. But my point is, even at that level and even knowing that person, I'm using myself as an example, that is not the right thing to do. I should not do those types of things. All right. So I'll even use myself as an example. Even in all the years I've done it, I still do things like that honestly could catch me if I'm not paying attention. I doubt it. Highly unlikely. But it could. So it's easy to be done. It's easy to be persuaded by it. It's easy to make the wrong assumptions. And this is why this show is really good for an agent that's just starting, because you could be talked to by a veteran agent and you'll just make the assumption, oh, well, they must know. Yeah, how to screw you. They're not on your side. I mean, don't What another takeaway from the show: do not ever listen to the other agent. I don't care if you think they're smart or they're intelligent. You verify through your broker or your team lead whatever they're saying that you don't know. Don't ever trust somebody on the other side. That's the epitome of bad agency, because they literally could be doing it intentionally to make you do something wrong. So don't ever do that. Such a mess. We talked about a little bit of possession, and possession. This is where we get into the. This could be this. Well, this is another show that we do. We do another show on possession twice a year, probably the ugliest show that we do, and we're not going to discuss it in full here, but it does affect the closing process. So, Rich will walk them through when it's Friday and why Friday is such a shit day to close.
Worst day ever. Do not ever.
Worst day ever. I don't even know if Thursday's a good day.
Close on a Friday.
I don't think Thursday's good.
I do all mine on Sundays.
Walk them through that process. I want you guys to talk about that in depth, about how it delays the close. What are the consequences? Now, the reason why I'm telling y'all, I've got to be on a panel at 1:00, and I'm gonna have to jet in just a few. But this is gonna give you like probably an hour worth, so you'll have plenty of stuff to discuss as you get there. And of course, Brent, don't forget that we do the do our sponsorship right after. But let's start talking about. We're on Friday. The lender's late, and the moving truck's there, and talk about how it's affected at title. Talk about we scheduled closes. Talk about who is it that really bears the brunt of the crap here. It's not so much the lender as much as it is that poor title person, because that title person is having someone screaming at him, and in reality, they have nothing to do with this. They're just moving the paperwork. So talk about how everybody's affected by that.
This to me or Rich? I didn't hear.
Yeah, it was Richard, but you can buy. It doesn't matter. Either one.
God, Rich, wait. All right, I'll talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Rich is like, hang on.
You just drink your
No,
Perrier.
that's fine.
It's
You
okay.
put one. I don't want to I don't want to step on your toes if you have something that you're
Richie,
saying.
you
No.
started off because he'll long win the end of it. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
So, I mean, buyers list are scheduled at separate times, but like you said, the title company is the person that's going to bear the brunt of the complaints because they're the face of it at that point. The lender says they sent off all the docs and everything they need. Everybody's done, and they're just waiting on, in their eyes, title to just finish it. But title obviously has to take all the documents that are signed, scan them, send them back to the lender for them to verify everything's done. And that's where the problem runs into. Now, the other problem you have is if you're getting pushed back to 5 o'clock, or a lot of times, what banks close, their wires close at 4. So if that's not fun,
Even the wire has to be approved, not just by the bank,
Yes.
but the bank oversight, right? Like
Yep,
you have to
yep.
be by the Federal Reserve. You have to make sure
Talk
that
about the wires for a little bit. That's a big problem in the closing process. Talk about what the dangers of the wires are, especially on the afternoon. Is 5 o'clock the real deadline for a wire?
No, it's
No.
earlier.
3 p.m.
Much earlier.
3 p.m. Because why? Where could the money be coming from?
Overseas, I mean, it could be coming from a different.
East Coast, probably.
Here.
East Coast, and they're already past
Yep.
banking hours at 5 o'clock. So
Yep.
that's another common mistake. It's funny. I got to do a better job, but I forget. I blog this one, but it's this is more important. It's funny. I hadn't done this in a long time, and when we go through it, there's so many points in here. Another thing you guys can discuss too, as we're going through this, is why the wire fraud's there. Wire fraud is huge. And I guess before I step away and let them finish, because I just gave them about 10 days worth of information to talk about, the wire fraud is such a big deal right now. You, as an agent, don't you ever, if anybody even mentions wires, the only thing you're going to do is flat out tell that client they need to directly call the title company, not email. And they need to make sure they have the correct number and they're talking to the correct person. They need to go through security checkpoints on who's the name of the person I'm looking for, who's the number I'm looking for. And the reason why I tell you that is most wire fraud is done because the person thinks they have that. Most wire fraud is done internally, where someone who used to work at the title company they copy the email, and all they do is they keep everything the same, but they transfer the wire account number. And then they send you a message saying you need to do this, and then they send it, and the next thing you know, you just sent $300,000 to someone in Birmingham. So this happens a lot. Y'all, even I'm scared of the wire. Even when I hear someone say they're going to wire, I'm like, hey, you need to make sure that you've directly talked to, not email. You've talked to this person, you've verified the accounts, and you know where to send it. That is the thing I am most paranoid about in real estate, is having one of our clients transfer cash to someone they didn't know. And it's so easy to do. That's why even at Keller Williams, we make the client sign a wire fraud saying, hey, look, we have told you, do not screw around with this. Do not take the word of somebody else. And we're not responsible if you did that. We're telling you right now. But a good agent follows that up with, hey, on that wire, make sure that you're on top of this. So just a brutal thing in the industry. And it's really become a lot worse in the technology era where people are able to do that. I'm actually shocked that we see it. I used to think that this was something so random and it'd be almost impossible. Now it's a reality. I mean, it could easily be done. So concerned about that. All right, get back to the Friday. Person sitting there, Mayflower van's out. Possession is supposed to happen. Title, where's the money at? Talk about the utilities, the pushback. Title, what are they doing? What are they saying? Do they come in on Saturday? Go through all that stuff for the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. Hey, guys, I got to run. It's rare that I have to leave the show, but I actually have a panel that I'm supposed to be on today. Probably should have already been on it, but I wanted to get a majority out of the show out of the way. As always, I want to thank Richard for being on the show. I love it when she volunteers her time. And Brent, really, he doesn't have a choice, so I'm not going to thank him. But he does a great job, and I appreciate him running it for me.
Do you notice the name change?
Like this is crazy right here.
I changed the name. The show's changing.
Yeah, so they're going to finish. We're not done yet. They're going to finish because there's some closing points they need to do, and our sponsors in there. But I'll see you guys next Thursday. They're going to finish out. I'll talk to y'all later.
Our viewership's just going to drop now. Nobody's going to watch us anymore. But there it went. All right. So welcome to Cat Daddy Radio.
No cats. No cats. Oh my God. Okay.
So yeah. Anyways, like he was saying,
why are we closing on Friday?
Yeah. So if we're closing Friday, which, like we said, is the worst day you could ever close because things happen, things get delayed, and when things get delayed, you usually have to wait till Monday. So it's not like, oh, we'll just pick it up in the morning. I know some title companies, they will come in on Saturdays, but the problem is that wires don't go through on Saturdays. So I don't know how funds can even, it can fund on Saturday, but it won't get dispersed until Monday. So it just depends on how that works. And that's something that I would probably have to go check with Robert on. But
I've never had that happen. I've never had a title company tell me they'll come in on Saturday.
Yeah, I just had that in my last deal. They came in on Saturday to get it done. Yeah, but my seller didn't get the money until Monday. So it's funded, but not
if all parties are okay with it and it doesn't affect anything in possession and whatnot. So then I guess it's not a problem. But most cases are not like that, right? Folks, if my money has left my bank account, I'm setting foot in that house is the expectation that people have. That if I give away $300,000 in closing and whatever in my down payment and whatnot to buy this house, the house is mine, and it's not,
Yep.
So things can be difficult. So Friday notoriously are very, very busy days for most offices, especially title companies. Everything that might have happened, even for the title office internally, whatever internal issues that they have, internal staff issues, that they have to take care of, and things just get pushed down to Friday.
It's funny, if you look at my calendar, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, all my deals, if they're on that's me as a buyer. That's my buyers. Buyer. And if it's on a Friday, that means it was my listing.
And that's because the buyer's gone on Thursday.
Yeah.
Your listing agent, your sellers are going to go sign on Friday. Yeah. It becomes
those buyers agents always want to do Saturday, and they're like, why are we doing it? And especially one thing to keep in mind is if you do it at the end of the month, That's when everyone closes. So the title companies are swamped. Good luck trying to get a slot. And then, they say, oh, well, we can, when your buyer says, oh, I'd like to sign at 4:00. I'm like, don't sign at 4 because it's never going to get funded.
Nope.
So yeah.
Usually I tell them all of this information that, look, you can, but you have to understand that funding is not going to happen and it can be delayed. So usually what I try to do is after it's gone through option period, that day 20 or whatever that you find out that the lender has given your buyer approval, that is the day I call either title company myself or have my buyer call the title company themselves and schedule a closing that day.
Smart.
For 10 days out. Just do it that day because more than likely you're about 90% of the way there that things are probably going to go through and you shouldn't have any major hiccups or issues. Schedule it, and then you can usually, if you're about 10, 12 days out from closing, you'll be able to find a time that's comfortable and it works for you, whether it be 9 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But I usually try to tell my clients, don't try to close after 2 if you can avoid it. If you absolutely can't get off from work or whatever, that's different. But if you can avoid it, do it first thing in the morning or not after 2.
See, folks, Richa puts the fun in funding. She really does.
Very fun.
Very fun. And then, and on a selfish note, as an agent, if it doesn't fund, then you don't get paid until it gets funded and dispersed. Keep that in mind.
And first, so that can be 2 or 3 days later after you closed, guys. That's the other thing you have to understand. Remember, people sometimes think real estate is easy money. I'm like, folks, my money is completely in this air bubble, and it doesn't even come into my account till sometimes 2 or 3 days later after you have closed the home and my clients have moved in the home.
I just married my wife for her money.
That's it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's my sugar mama.
I'm going to have a conversation with Joan about that.
Yeah, that's fine. She's good with it. So yeah, I'm trying to think, is there any other stuff that we didn't cover? I mean, I'm sure there is, but.
So the final walkthrough, right, is what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Like you're going to, before you go to closing. So a lot of the times people think, oh, I can do a final walkthrough my buyer. I can take them to do a final walkthrough of the house. Everything is still there a few days before closing. And that's not advisable. Usually, again, I'm try to have my clients do the walkthrough right before we're going to closing. So if you're going to close at 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm meeting you at the house at 7:45, 8 a.m. So you have that full 30, 40 minutes to walk through the house, really make sure everything is there.
Yep.
A lot of the times during storm and hurricane season here, you need to make sure that the house is still standing. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with, water. It could be a fire. Any thing could happen where the house could be damaged or compromised, or the inside, outside. There could be a burglary, anything. There could be 1,000 things that could happen. So you need to make sure right before we go to closing that the home is still existing. The home is in appropriate condition. All of the repairs that the seller said have been done and have been completed.
And that is nerve-wracking for a buyer's agent too. When you walk through and you're like, oh God, oh no, no.
The worst is when I have either a husband or wife be like, hey, can you come take a look at this? What is this? And I'm like,
no. Or if you're the listing agent, when you get that call.
I'm so scared as to what it is. Usually it's 99% of the time it's nothing, but I every time they say that, I'm like on pins and needles, like, oh my God.
I had this house and it was in Frisco, and it was just the whole process. I was the listing agent, was a nightmare. The seller didn't understand what I was talking about in repairs, kept arguing that there was nothing wrong when there clearly was, didn't do anything. I won't do this anymore, but I was in their shower, recalking their shower to make sure this deal closed.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
I was making sure the handrails were resecured. And then there was this request that the crepe myrtle out front either needs to be trimmed way back or removed. And the seller waited and waited and waited. And then he says, okay, I got the tree fixed. So I pull up as a listing agent to the final walkthrough because I wanted to walk the buyer's agent through everything. And the tree, let's say the tree is like this normally, and it was huge. It was just a diagonal, cut straight through with sticks and everything. And I pull up, and as soon as I see it, the buyer's agent pulls up behind me. And she stares at it, and she goes, what happened here? I go, well, let's start on the inside with the repairs. And we walked in, and I just kind of pretended we didn't see it. And it closed. Awful. And that was the buyer's agent calls me, hey, the trash cans are completely full. And I'm like, oh my God, can I just get through this deal? Like, please. So This is why I don't like listings. Just saying.
Real estate, not easy, folks. And please stop watching HGTV and think that that's how things happen. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go in.
Right. All right, we got to get into our sponsors because we only have a few minutes left. So let me play this wonderful pre-recorded thing. Hopefully this doesn't come out of my AirPod, but I will see. Where's the microphone here? All right, Mr. George DiGianni.
Hi, this is George DiGianni. Did you know in 2018 there were 120,000 realtors in Texas? That's the most Texas realtor population they've ever seen. 2 years later, 2020, there are now 140,000 realtors in Texas. Have you taken time to consider what sets you apart from all your other competitors? Why should a prospect choose you? Well, I'm the only mortgage lender that will help you excel beyond your current level of success by incorporating both my Harvard academic knowledge and my 29 years of business prowess in a consultative session that is free to you. I will impart my knowledge about the business fundamentals you may not have been exposed to in the past. How do we do this? Get in touch with me today, George at sublimefinancial.com.
Such a great voice. Such a great voice. Richa, you have another one. I told you should do voiceovers for the firm.
Oh, did you? No, I don't have that voice.
I think you do. Classic.
Thank you.
All right, let me see what I got. All right, our next sponsor is Mr. Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. He is our go-to home inspector. We, of course, always give our clients a number of inspectors to choose from, but Martin is the inspector we prefer. He is always on time or early, finishes in a timely manner, gets the report to you the same day, and all reports are color-coded. Red for serious issues and blue for minor things to look at. It makes it really easy as somebody in charge is looking through inspection reports all day to be able to figure out what's important, what's critical, and what's not. You can always book him at bpginspections.com or reach him at 817-401-3240. That's Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. Now, let me quickly get to my ad copy for my third sponsor, and it just disappeared. That's fantastic. And now we got it. Greg Holdberg with Liberator Health Insurance. Your simple solution to affordable healthcare is here. Join the Liberator movement and take control of your healthcare. Customize your healthcare plan to fit your healthcare and budget needs. Use any doctor or hospital without a penalty. Teledoc is included in all plans. Save 40 to 60% on your premiums. The Liberator deal of the week, a family of 5 got great coverage for $595 per month, and that includes a health savings account that will grow to provide $5,000 in healthcare benefits. As an independent agency, Liberator is committed to transforming healthcare in Texas through innovative healthcare plans that are affordable and rich in benefits, just like me. For more information and to get a quick quote, call or text Greg Holdberg, independent health insurance broker, at 214-886-4688 or visit them at liberatorhealthinsurance.com. So, I think that's pretty much it.
Change your name to...
Yeah, I did it immediately as soon as Robert was done.
Okay.
He left. We are now Cat Daddy Radio.
He's going to... No, you are, and he's going to fire us. This is not a good idea.
What? So I don't get to volunteer to be on the show anymore?
Yes, volunteer is what you're doing.
I am volunteering.
Forced volunteering.
That's right. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Always ask your real estate questions. Brett's always available anytime. I am as well. If you have any questions about real estate, joining Small World Realty, Keller Williams, selling your house, buying your house, not buying or selling a house right now, we're available for those questions.
Yep. Go to joinswr.com to get more information. Or if you want to learn more about Cat Daddy Radio, just reach out to me. We can launch it.
Only him. Do not text me, email me, any of that swill.
Yeah, I think you can. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next week.